Nessa girl, don't be mad at me for not calling you yesterday. But yesterday I was feeling mighty bad. And I figured in the wake of everything that went on down in Fort Lauderdale at that school, that yesterday was just not the time for us to be kikiing and caca about things that really don't matter. So girl, I stayed to myself and I meditated and did some other little things around the house and took care of some other bills. And I figured I'd call you later, and later is today. Unfortunately, we have found ourselves in a situation where once again we have to sit here and think about where it is we were and what it is we were doing when tragedy struck. I was sitting on the phone running my mouth with my girlfriend Quee and my friend Kendra, who teaches at a middle school that's 10 minutes away from the high school that the tragedy happened. She called me, and she never really calls me during the day. So I answered the phone, and she was like, hey, what are you doing? And I said, I'm on the phone with Quee, what's up? And she sounded flustered. I said, you need anything? Everything okay? She's like, no, I'll call you back. She hung up. I clicked back over to Quee and said, Kendra was on the other line, but she said she was okay, but she sounded kind of flustered. Oh, well, I got problems of my own. I'll talk to her later. Lo and behold, she was calling me on her way home from work as a result of this tragedy. And she's a school teacher, and I was like, oh my God, I'm such a bad friend. At any rate, much like Whitney Houston's death, Michael's death, so on and so forth, all of us will forever remember where we were and what we were doing when they got the news. It is unfortunate that we live in a country that money comes before morals. At this point, you can no longer justify to me in any way, shape, or form how it is possible and why it is people need automatic weapons. Now, I'm all for the right to bear arms, and I understand the argument that you can't take guns away from civilians because criminals will have them and civilians will not have a way to protect themselves. However, you cannot provide for me one real world practical application why anyone outside of the military needs an automatic weapon or a semi-automatic weapon. If somebody is breaking into your house, attacking your child, attacking your dog, I'm sure it's going to be one or two somebodies and not 900 somebodies. So why is it humanly possible or necessary that civilians can have AR-17 rifles, y'all? I just can't understand that. And the thing about it is, these politicians can't understand it either. But the NRA has lobbied so hard and has put so much money in their pockets, both through the front door and the back door, they simply turn a blind eye to the types of policies that we need because they figure I'm rich and fancy. It don't affect me. It affects those people down there. And yeah, I turn the blind eye to this policy to get these 6 passed. I can absolve myself of whatever sin is associated with this because look how much good I've done over here by just turning a blind eye over there. Let me tell you something. The United States, we are economically superior to the rest of the world because we are morally bankrupt. And that's the God honest truth. And I don't know, some people say, Dad, you should have been known that. But it really just sunk in with this tragedy that we are economically superior to the rest of the world because we are morally bankrupt as a country. I saw on Facebook there was some other, and don't quote me, you know how they have those viral videos going around, and they were saying it was some other country over there that had a mass shooting. I want to say it was Australia, but do not quote me. Said that they had a mass shooting and immediately following all the people, I think they call it the Prime Ministry, but they governmental people came together, banned mass shootings and banned guns for civilians. Either guns in total or a certain sector of guns. Nonetheless, they had not had another mass shooting since like 1983 or 87 or something like that. And I'm at the point now where when it comes to gun laws, the United States need to stop being so liberal. We need to get on board and we need to just put an end to this. Yes, I understand guns don't kill people. People kill people. But in 2018, y'all, we don't have the resources to go around and on a one-by-one basis scrutinize every single person and say, are you a nutcase? Are you not a nutcase? So we need some broad sweeping legislation that's just a safety net that's a catch-all that will help mitigate all of this. You know, statistically, yeah, it's still very unlikely for you to get caught up in a mass shooting situation, a mass bombing, a plane crash, but yet and still, when you're talking about 17 people losing their lives in one fell swoop, fuck statistics. You know what I'm saying? You just got to do what's best for the people on a broad, sweeping, long-term basis. Did he have mental illness? Let me tell you something. Anybody who can pull off a crime like this is obviously mentally ill, okay? He was sick. And, ooh, a chill just went up my spine. By no means necessary am I trying to marginalize what it is this boy did, Dylan Roof did, that man that shot at those people in Las Vegas. Listen, it is not natural nor normal to want to take human life. And the way he did it to a bunch of innocent people. So yes, he is obviously sick, okay? What hurts for a lot of people, especially in the media when we try to explore this mental illness situation, is that you can't help but default to situations like Trayvon Martin where no compassion was shown for Trayvon and he was the victim. But then you have situations like this where the media wants to explore all these mental illness scenarios, and this person better fits the box of being a villain, the thug, the terrorist than Trayvon did and ever will. Yet the media never shows the Trayvon Martins of the world compassion, but yet they want to show this guy compassion. And again, you know me, I'm so sick of the race war and I don't want to turn this into one. But the reality of the situation is what we need in this world 360 is more compassion. We can show compassion to the mentally ill without demonizing black people. We can show compassion for Trayvon and compassion for this guy at the same damn time. Compassion can exist in both cases in the same space. They're not mutually exclusive of one another. We all need compassion. George Zimmerman was mentally ill. This guy, Cruz, is mentally ill. Trayvon is a victim. And I can have compassion for all three of them at the same damn time. Where the media goes wrong is they tend to show compassion for people who are not black, but show all the compassion in the world for people who have committed these atrocious crimes. Me, quite frankly, my immediate emotional response was, damn, why they didn't put a bullet in his head, okay? Now that my emotions have subsided, it's not compassion for me that wants him alive. It's science and exploration. I need him interviewed and documented going back 20 years and forward the next 20 years, because science needs to understand the psychology, the sociology, and the biology of people. I was missing one of them ologies. Of people who commit these types of crimes. So perhaps we can put together a profile and try to prevent it. I think that in shooting him, now granted, don't get me wrong, had they shot him, I wouldn't have gave a shit one way or another. But in keeping him alive, we can at least try to, this is going to sound bad, but I don't mean it like this, maximize the situation by learning as much about the brain as we can. My sister posted something on Facebook and she said, you know, she felt it prudent to have a conversation with my younger nephew and she didn't know how. My nephew is in the 2nd grade, I believe. I'm such a bad uncle. And so she posted it on Facebook, and so she was soliciting suggestions from people. And I got up under her comment and I basically said, you know, my opinion may not count for anything, but I am of the firm belief that you leave kids innocent for as long as possible and you leave them naive for as long as possible. As troublesome as this world is, they've got all their lives to process and worry about thoughts of death. And I was saying, my advice to you would be deflect, deflect, deflect until you can't deflect no more. When his curiosity gets the best of him and he gives you that look, or he keeps pressing the issue, meaning he wants more information, that's how you know it's time to sit down and talk to him. And even at that moment, you allow him or her to curate the conversation. Ask more questions, do more listening. By allowing them to curate the conversation, you're able to gauge to what level of understanding these kids have. And then you speak to them on their level of understanding. So that was my advice to her, and that's my advice to you. Don't get so caught up in growing these kids up so quick. Let me tell you something, y'all, and this is true tea. I didn't know where you were supposed to stick it, meaning sexually, until I was like 12 or 13 years old, and that's just true tea. Like my mama and daddy, and they did a really good job of just shielding me from all this other bullshit that I had the rest of my life to worry about. I was the only kid in 7th grade still playing with coloring books and wearing shoes with Velcro straps. And I just believe that that's the way kids should be raised. And a lot of people gonna argue, if you don't give your kids the information, they'll get it from somewhere, and I want my kids to be safe. And the reality of the situation is, beyond run and hide with a crazy motherfucker out there with a semi-automatic weapon, there is no preparation for anything like this. There is no preparation. There just isn't. We can do as many drills as we want, and we can try to be as safe as possible. Lock the doors, get under the desk, so on and so forth. But in the heat of the moment, when something like this happens and panic strikes, there is no true preparation. So with that being said, this ain't no stop, drop, and roll. This ain't no tornado drill. Leave them babies alone. Leave them babies alone. Lastly, y'all, I want to touch on something. I'm not going to lie to you. Being born and raised in Miami and now living in Atlanta, traveling to big cities, and historically, these types of things have always happened in the Aurora, Colorados of the world. These smaller, off the beaten path places that we big city folk basically don't pay any attention to and think are podunk small towns. Now the thing in Charlotte was, what part was that when he shot up the church? I can't remember what city that was. Nonetheless, I'm not going to lie to you, and maybe it's my own personal ignorance and bias towards being a big city person. I've always felt safer and felt like, nah, that ain't going to happen to me or to us, because this stuff has always happened in them small towns. The fact that this happened in Fort Lauderdale, and if you're from South Florida like I'm from, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Hollywood, West Palm, as it relates to the world, it's the same damn place. When people go out of town that are from Fort Lauderdale, people be like, where you from? A lot of times they'll say, I'm from Miami, because a lot of people never heard of Fort Lauderdale. They have never heard of Hollywood. So they lump it all in the Miami box. With that being said, as far as I'm concerned, this shooting has now happened in Miami. I equate Miami with Chicago, New Orleans, New York, LA, Houston, Dallas, DC. It is a big city with high visibility. And I consider all of those places to always be more forward thinking and progressive than the rest of the world. The fact that this has happened in Fort Lauderdale, Miami, has opened up my eyes to the fact that, oh my God, I can no longer rest on that. Child, this don't happen in places like this. And it's now gotten me concerned, because I think this is one of the first ones that has happened in like a major big city, big densely populated area, and that has me spooked. Because for the first time now I'm feeling like, bitch, it can truly happen anywhere. Before, I was kind of like, that don't kind of happen in the places I live. Now I am spooked. And I don't know what the answer is, y'all. So let's drop down in the comments and let's talk about that. For me, I feel like it may not be the answer, but it's definitely the start. Removing these automatic and semi-automatic weapons away from civilians. What are some other key points or some other ways y'all think that we can kind of fix this issue or mitigate it or minimize it? Policies that can be changed, things that can happen. Let's discuss. Drop down in the comments. And always, y'all, don't forget, like, subscribe. Make sure you hit the bell thing so every time the phone rings, you'll answer. And I'll talk to you later. Bye.